He's got his cravat on.
Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
Very English.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what to do with the weather.
Rolling.
We're rolling.
We're rolling.
Martin,
Joe.
welcome to the podcast. We're introducing your new feature at Reedsy of hometown tours.
Yeah. It's something that we offer every Reedsy author. All you have to do, like the A-Team, is find me.
Yeah.
And I'll show you around here, the town where I live, Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah. So we're here and we're getting the walking tour from Martin at Reedsy. It's pretty awesome. We took a stop by this beautiful fountain, and we thought we would talk a little bit about marketing, because I'm kind of a fanboy of Reedsy marketing. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. And considering I'm in the marketing team, that's also very flattering to hear.
So let's start out with kind of a big one, which is right now there's a lot of turmoil in the industry. Authors are wondering what they should be doing around being discovered, and how do they deal with new things like AI. What do you see authors right now doing wrong that could be hurting their marketing long term?
I think that one of the big things, because, there are all these fancy bells and whistles. Everyone's talking about advertising and AI and going viral on TikTok. But the one thing that, you still need to do is get those basics right. Very often that's like product fit. Very often they go, I just need to advertise and market it the right way. But very often the reason why their book doesn't pick up, even when you can send, readers there through adverts, is that the book just isn't set up to succeed in the way it needs to. Because, we all know that word of mouth is massive. Readers are incredibly good at proselytizing their favorite new authors in a way that nobody recommends their favorite brand of, Nurofen or something. But, they will go out of their way to tell strangers and friends about their book. So every book, in order to succeed, needs to work to the point where they will want to leave a review on Amazon, even if they don't know who you are, or they will need to be able to recommend it to your friends. Because if you don't have that bit, you'll never really pick up that momentum, and you'll never properly hit it. With that in mind, it's great to get your ad campaigns right, but without those basics, your ability to convert your reader into an advocate, and then to convert those people into more advocates, you're going to hit a dead end at some point.
For sure. With the stuff that you're working on now, I know that, and we'll cut it in here, we've seen you and Ricardo on our TV at the house.
Oh, yeah. We just had a message on the board today. One of our team members, she lives in Idaho, and it's like, my dad's seen Reedsy on the TV. We're in the big time now.
Sign up for your free account today at Reedsy.com and give your book the best chance at success. Did you know that you can work with the editor of The Hunger Games? On Reedsy, you can find editors, proofreaders, and designers who have worked on major bestsellers and hire them to work on your book. Browse through our handpicked professionals or filter by genre or keywords to find candidates with just the right expertise. All you have to do is finalize your shortlist and reach out to your dream editors or designers. Create your free Reedsy account today and publish a professional, beautiful book.
Giving my son a needle during.
So tell us a little bit about because I know this wasn't you just woke up one day and did this. You've been thinking about your marketing for a long time. What was the process to decide to go to something like streaming ads on TV? And how if you can, maybe discuss where you feel it's going right now. Is it helping with awareness?
Yeah, because that's the funny thing. Because I think everyone's reaction is because they see us on the TV. We're right up there with the Coca-Cola Christmas ads or something. But, sort of nobody really in this part of the business does brand advertising, because it costs a lot to build the ads and it costs a lot to get your space. And the cool thing about the connected TV ads, which is where you're seeing us on Amazon, on any sort of, if you're on Hulu, you might see us, is that's programmatic advertising, the same as social. Now, we don't see that as brand advertising because we can target readers and users the same way you'd target social media ads. There are downsides to it. The CPMs on that are 3 to 4 times what they would on a social ad, but it has that engagement.
So give me just kind of a number for the CPMs. Is it?
I'm not actually sure about that. I got this from Megan, who runs our adverts, but we're talking about, something, I imagine it's in the $3 to $4 range. Perhaps. But, because we are a company that over the lifetime, we're looking to get a little bit more revenue out of our converted users than an author who might sell a book and get $2, $3, $4 a couple times a year, we're able to justify that. But everything is attributable.
Yeah.
If you're signed up through your connected TV, you can pick up your IP and make an attribution that way. If it's through Google or Amazon, it's probably connected to your account, so you can attribute it that way. So it's less like brand advertising and more just an extension of that social advertising and like YouTube advertising. The big thing is that you have to get your production right. Mm-hmm. If you make a real turd of an advert and it turns up on someone's TV, it's a brand shredding exercise. So it's got to be exactly 30 seconds long. In order to work, it's got to have that call to action right at the end. Mm-hmm. But we're able to see all the data and know what works and try new hooks and try new approaches.
And what's your take on it so far? Like, is it?
It's been strong.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of the actual, it costs more to reach them, but they are more engaged, and we're seeing more of those people actually going through and signing up for a free account. So it's been a success so far. But every now and again, the creative gets a bit tired, and so we have to make new stuff. But we have an in-house illustrator and animator. So we're able to, put out new creators fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. We have that luxury that a lot of others don't have. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're going through an agency, every single iteration of your campaigns is going to cost you something.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting for me right now, and why I think you guys are a good example, and it's you said. And I think it's something that authors really connect into a lot and are worried about. And that is like that cost of advertising is like, authors tend to be so transactional. Like, I'm selling a $4 book. I need it to make money on this ad, right? And then the next rationalization that happened, whatever was like, say 7 years ago as well, if I can get my money and a return on this series, right? So now we kind of rationalize our ad spend on, what a series could, lifetime value of that series. And I think we're really in an inflection point with marketing, and it's something you talked about with brand, is readers connect in a brand. They tend to talk about either really like a core book series or an author, right? That author name, pen name represents a feeling they have when they read a book. What I really admire about what you guys are doing is you take the full stack of marketing, and you are doing awareness. You are doing, you do have your marketing in there where you're tracking to see that it does eventually turn into, a conversion and lifetime value. But I'd really be interested in hearing you talk a little bit more about how maybe authors can think about that, splitting up their spend and thinking more about that overall, like, I got to get people to know about my brand, then I need to educate them about the brand. Yeah. Then maybe they'll buy a book, right? And gets that flywheel spinning to eventually get to what you're talking, the biggest, best thing being word of mouth.
Yeah. Like,
there was a question.
It's an interesting thing. I'd like to sort of unpack in a few ways.
Yeah.
I guess there's that first thing of, if you go into this as a business enterprise, as in, I'm writing the books, I want to be able to live independently off of this. That's such a hard thing to do, because if you want to get rich, this is one of the hardest ways to do it. You could literally spend your time and money in much better places. And, I do want authors to, invest their time and resources wisely. But if it's all about making a return on it, that's going to end in heartache for the vast majority of people. And maybe it's because we're British and we don't really want to expect too much of anything. And in the same way, we don't want everyone to go into this as, an expensive hobby that they put money into. I don't know, but it feels like you kind of want to see your most precious resource as your time. Mm-hmm. And it's not about where you spend your money, but where you spend your effort. And for us as Reedsy, we kind of want to get as many people as possible, from the people who are just right now ready to get an editor, to people who we know are just at the start of their journey. And we have the luxury of time to help those people. We go out and create content about, what is a protagonist? Knowing that there are some people right now who don't know what a protagonist is, maybe is a bit keen on writing. And we know if we create content and appeals to them and speak to them, and get them on this road, there are people who have come in knowing absolutely nothing, gone into the ecosystem we've created of webinars, of blog posts, of live events and videos, who 3 years later have gone on to publish their first book. So we've had the luxury of taking that, 5-year outlook and being able to spend our time finding people exactly where they are at this point and making an educated guess at where those groups of people, there are folks who may convert eventually into authors ready to publish, ready to get educated with our courses, or join our community, or pay for an editor. I'm sure there was an answer to a question in there as well.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I think the important thing that I was connecting to on that is you said that that's a luxury, and I don't necessarily know if that's a luxury. I think that's just how it works. We, as being the centers of our own universe, are like, no, I just released this book. I want it to sell. I'm trying to make the bestseller list. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying, like I have all these expectations for my business, and you're not looking at the fact that your book isn't the most important thing to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And so just like with your brand or my brand, you need to get people to know that it's there. And then when they're ready, right, they're like, oh, I am going to write that book.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that Reedsy ad on my TV, so I'm going to go check those guys out. And now they start reading your blogs.
Yeah.
And now they're going into the rabbit hole, right? And they're nurturing themselves in that process. Whereas I think so much of what author marketing is built around is this kind of digital marketing, e-com. You got to convert today.
Sure,
right?
yeah. It is a sort of like, you have a problem, here's how to fix it. We've created a problem that can fix your problem.
Yeah.
Where, realistically, sort of going back to what I was talking about before, it is such a tough game to play. And if you readjust your expectations from how do I become a bestseller to how can I actually make my book find the readers that it needs, not every book will appeal to everything. If you do want to go out there and become a 6-7 figure author, you should be writing to market. And very often that isn't necessarily writing what you want to write. So to some extent, we do want to push people to write the stuff they want to write as best as they can and give them the tools to find their readers. And it may just be 500 people around the world, but if they can find those precise people and get them on board, we want them to sort of see that that's as much success as, someone who writes 10 books a year and sells 100,000 copies.
Well, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot, and it came out of research that I did, is that if you look at the 6-figure author, somebody attains 6 figures in 36 months, and it took me about 6 years to pull all this data together. In 36 months, they've got a 50% chance of still earning 6 figures. Okay. Well, what about the other 50%? Well, 5%, it's actually a little bit less than that, will be making 7 figures. Well, what about the other 45? Well, they're back down earning less than 6 figures. And when you look at what those people have done, the recipe, right, the things that they've done to try and get to 7 figures are a lot of the same things that gets you to 5 again. And so what I'm hoping people take away from the stuff we're talking about at Author Nation is don't focus in on the recipe. There is no recipe. It is understanding, earlier to what you said, is a very hard business to be in. It takes threshold events. It takes time for things to compound. You can't build an audience overnight. Not a real audience. Like, you may be able to game the system and get some sales. You may be able to trigger some things algorithmically. But if you really want people to connect with your brand, they have to understand your brand, right? And the coolest thing about being an author, and this is something that Reedsy will never have, is necessarily, or I shouldn't say but a lot of products don't have, is that with a book, when it's consumed, there's this really deep emotional experience that the person is having in their head, right? That's what they're going to remember and want more of if you get them to read that first book. So one last thing before we kind of continue on with your walking tour and some more questions later on. And what got you into marketing and involved with Reedsy per se, and like this whole kind of grand scheme that you guys have in doing your marketing at Reedsy?
Yeah, sure.
Kind of two questions.
Oh yeah, so my route into marketing is like a lot of people's route into marketing. I sort of was in the creative industries before. I moved to London to work in film production, so I was working at Runners on sets. I fell in with a gang of folks who actually pre-YouTube influencer videos were making proto-influencer makeup videos, and so we go around, do a lot of pack shots and makeup applications. So from there, I started working at a company that did video on demand. I started writing a blog for them. Of course, it was like the early 2010s when everyone needed a blog, but no one really understood why they needed a blog. They just knew we just need to put out 3 posts a week. We just need to be doing 5 tweets. And, that's why social media manager at that point was a next to useless position.
Yeah.
They treated them really poorly, had no expectations, no idea of how to actually make that stuff turn into leads, into conversions or anything. So I basically asked my foot into content marketing at the time when everyone was saying that content is king. From that job, I went to an online real estate agent about 10 years ago. And yet again, creating more blog content to get potential tenants in, landlords in to use their services. And it was the worst. It was spending the entire time just tricking people into a service that was not necessarily good for them. But, I had built up a fair amount of skills and experience. And so after I left there, Reedsy genuinely came a calling. They had just been going for about a year. We're looking for a content marketer. And it was just really exciting because I never interviewed at a place where they actually had an understanding of how it could work. We're open to creating a system that let us put content out there, have ways of tracking how well it did by how well it ranked on Google. At that point, Google search was one of the #1 ways of getting new users in. We had a way of tracking how well they converted to people signing up for a Reedsy account, how well they converted to sending a request to an editor or a designer. So there was a method there where we could go out, create this blog content, create these tools and resources, and for me to be able to show, actually the work I've done has had this measurable effect on the bottom line of the company. And there were just so many places at that point which didn't see the value in that. All the effort was put into brand advertising because the CMOs everywhere and the founders just didn't understand how the internet worked in any real way. And so Reedsy was the first place that was really satisfying to work because we're putting out a product that people genuinely like. I don't feel is tricking anyone. We're helping a lot of authors on the way. And there's a way for me to prove my value. And over the years, marketing has changed. In the last 2 years with AI overviews and that classic SEO approach of getting to the #1 spot on Google search rankings is kind of going away, and we're having to scrabble and find new ways to make up for that gap. But at the height of it, we were bringing in more new users through the Reedsy blog than we were through advertising.
It was crazy. When I was first looking at SEO, again, this has gone back, say 5 years back, and seeing how, you were talking a minute ago about the difference between London pricing and Edinburgh pricing, and where Reedsy was as far as in page ranks and stuff like that compared to anybody else in the publishing space, it was logarithmic. It was crazy. There was maybe 1 or 2 other companies that were up in that space, but you guys, I don't know, what do you think it was that early adoption, or was there certain things that you did or a combination that made that?
I think the thing that has always been our focus is, we can look at any particular search term and search intent, and you can see just a lot of people lazily putting out just a blog with hitting all the keywords and stuff. One of our big priorities was to, look at those people who search for something, how to plot a novel, and try to drill down into exactly what do they want at this point, and try to find novel ways to deliver something that nobody else is. So, 6 years ago, how to write a novel. We took a few ways through it, the step-by-step process. We got in and got novelists to come and give their first-hand, opinion. But then we were able to innovate and go okay, what about we offer a novel writing template, which is just, the 12 beats of the hero's journey or something, but that's sort of front and center and a big part of the search. And we saw things spike after that. So we were able to, make a guess about what those particular users find useful, provide it to them, and see the click-through rate spike, the sort of time spent on page, the downloads, the signups. And so it is that, going in and figuring out what their need is, what their want is, what their pain point is, and trying to find new ways to help that out. And, one of our biggest successes was finding, creating these character name generators, which I think isn't a massive concern of people who are already writing a book. We created that, before AI, so we had a list of tens of thousands of manually created first names and surnames and permutations of it from different cultures and languages. And that brought us hundreds of thousands of visitors each month. And, the actual conversion rate on that is terrible because of the sheer amount. We were able to, it became our biggest driver of signups to Reedsy and a massive driver of requests, even though it doesn't feel like everyone is relevant. We just knew that within that massive pool, there was enough people interested.
Yeah. Well, I think that's with marketing, especially with digital marketing and having so much visibility on action, you lose sight of sometimes it is about bringing in the big pool, right? Like you do, and then you have the system have some process of of filtration, right? Well, with that kind of idea, if you were trying to market a book today, thinking about that, because I think that stuff, like the idea is still really relevant, right? It doesn't matter that now that it may be even more important now because search within AI has a context understanding, right? So like, how is that, if you were an author today, how would you be thinking about what you know from the past, how you would go and maybe find, create something on your website that would attract readers?
I think it's harder and harder to do that on a website. To actually drive people organically through search to a website is, I think, increasingly difficult. People will go through the AI overviews, most of the time just take the answers from there. So in the future, I think one of the priorities will be to find a way to influence those AI overviews. And so that, strange enough, comes back to a lot of your old school stuff. You want more people to be talking about you. Like, they will draw from places like, Reddit and social media places. So the more people are chattering about you, the more the AI will sort of have their ear to the ground and pick up on all of that. And so a lot of it is coming down to knowing where your users are, getting them excited, getting them talking about you. It may not, in the future, right now it's all TikTok.
Yeah.
You want to be on TikTok, you want to be able to find people where they are. You have creators making content. Like if you're a non-fiction author, everything's not easier, but it's a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, you've got a problem you're solving or a mindset change you're making. Yeah.
And then you can spin out infinite content on TikTok or wherever the platform is of the day and bring them in that way. As a fiction author, you either get them, I don't know, it's tough. I've never,
I think it's a mindset thing is that authors get hung up on the story, right? Like, my story is about a monster that meets this woman and it's enemies to love. They don't understand that what they're delivering is an experience. So how can they bring that in? And I think where we're starting to see people start to get a feel for it is like when they talk about the tropes, right? A trope is an access point for a fiction author or a fiction reader to be like, oh yeah, I like enemies to lovers, or I like small town romance, or I like, but that's shorthand for the feeling they have when they read that stuff. So I think that it's more of the technique, whether it's getting people to come and join Reedsy and find their next editor, or come to my seminars on mindset, or reading my romantasy. The technique is the same. It's understanding that the veneer around it has to be different, right?
Yeah. And for us, we're putting more effort and time into online video content because it's like that. You say it's the experience. Like, most new authors, they want a book that will sell, but very often they will want that experience of what it feels like to be an author who works with an editor. That creative experience. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is give them exposure to those editors who, up until now, you imagine they're all Lauren Bacall and Misery, these sort of like stentorian, serious people who just demand their pages. When we bring editors onto our webinars, and like all of them are like really nice book nerds that manifest in different ways, but they're just actual human beings who are looking forward to that creative experience of working with authors. And to almost divorce the product of having to make your book as best as it can to, this is an experience for you to learn from someone who's there, to feel like you're in the business, in the craft.
Yeah, for sure. If you were an author, what would you really be doubling down on now, knowing that there's a lot of changes going on in marketing, a lot of uncertainty, but if you knew that you had, to really just focus on one or two things, what would they be?
I don't know, it sounds like I'm just looking to the past, but I think there's going to be a massive emphasis that everyone should be placing on their personal brand, about getting their face out there and their personality. I know a lot of people aren't really keen. They want to write and put stuff out there without necessarily exposing themselves, to public scrutiny. And I think with the appeal of like generative AI, you can now put out all this content without necessarily your face on it. But the next couple of years, I think we're going to see that flooding the market. People putting out adverts and digital covers and all this stuff that's been generated through AI to the point where people are just going to tune it out, and it may not be connecting with fans on TikTok. The platform may have moved on by then, but it still will be that sort of community that you create between the readers and yourself, whether you're a non-fiction author looking to like solve problems, becoming a thought leader, or just a creator there that they feel connected with. All the people you've seen hitting it big are the folks who've managed to get people involved in their story and feel like they are in some way, have ownership over that brand, over that book series, over that author. So what everyone is focusing on, just building slick stuff and putting all that sort of automated content out there. It's the stuff that can't be beat, of just connecting with your readers. I think that's going to be, the sensible play. Yeah.
I think that there's so much emphasis put on like how much content can be created in such little time with robots that ironically kind of bad amateur real stuff that people are obvious that it's you and you're coming from a heartfelt place is going to resonate more and be authentic. And I think that that's the stuff that people are going to be looking for more and more, for sure. Like this.
Yeah. Because, in the content world, the content that is being put out is only getting sloppier from, used to be everything you need to put out needs to be super slick, to YouTube, which is a bit more rough and ready, to Instagram, which is mega polished, but now to TikTok, where the thing that everyone is craving is that realness, that authenticity. And it doesn't have to be slick, doesn't have to be great, just have to do it regularly, and they have to just connect with you. You with all your rough edges and flaws are, that is something that readers can connect with.
So I know I said that was the last question, but you made me think about something. I've watched a bunch of the stuff that you've done, whether it's like the ads that I've seen on the TV or YouTube stuff. How much do you like script, and how much of how much production value is going into what you're doing? Because it seems to be kind of a nice balance between, like, I feel like I'm in your office to, it is of a higher quality.
Yeah, we try our best. There's the thing, like with the adverts, that has to feel like it's clean and slick. Thankfully we have an animator there who can, make everything look polished, take you to an exciting, different world. But, that whole thing of just being in my office, talking to, directly to the authors is like invaluable. Some of the best stuff I think I've done is those live streams we have where they're just chatting along with us on the live chat. And I feel like everyone can feel like they're coming together and being a part of that community. And that's what people are looking for. Writing is, a lonely pursuit sometimes, and selling a book can feel even lonelier. But, by providing some sort of community, whether it's between yourself and your readers or yourself and your fellow authors, it, makes it just that much more accessible for everyone, and that much more, actually fun.
Well, Martin, it's been awesome having you on the podcast, and most of all, your tour. In between shots, we've been to Edinburgh Castle, we've had fish and chips, we went to a vintage shop, so there's a lot of off-screen stuff that's been happening. It's been great having you on, and thanks for being such a good host.
All right, thank you for coming.
All right.
Yeah.